What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plaisance Podcast. In this episode, I will be talking about the college football playoffs with my good friends Cameron and Carden from the Saturdays in the SEC podcast. Be sure to go check them out. The link is in the description. They have a great channel, and they know more about the SEC than anyone I've ever met. So stay tuned for this episode. Be sure to look at our other ones as well. And thanks again for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let's talk about Ole Miss and what their outlook is after a disastrous gap between the Egg Bowl and their first game versus Tulane. Lane Kiffin leaves in the most Lane Kiffin way that he could have possibly left. Love him or hate him, you know, he's going to be the same guy that he was when he was getting tarmacked at USC, right? That's just who Lane is. So he has left the program. First question that I do not know the answer before you guys answer. Carden, I'm going to start with you. Was it wrong for Ole Miss to say Lane Kiffin should not coach the Ole Miss Rebels in the playoffs?
Was it wrong? No. Will it bite them in the rear end? Probably so. I think that their best chance to go win a national championship is with Lane on the sideline, but I 100% understand why they didn't. If I was an Ole Miss fan, I would definitely want him to coach. I may feel a little different because of how he ran you around for a month and a half, but I still think that the best chance Ole Miss has to win it all is with him on the sidelines. Now, the players in the locker room might use that spite and be fueled by that to go win a national championship, but I don't think that it's wrong in any way, shape, or form to allow him to keep coaching. And some people are going to say, well, why is John Summerall still getting to coach? Why are other coaches still getting to coach? Why are some of the coordinators that are leaving still getting to coach? It's a completely different situation because they didn't give him the runaround for a month and a half and go back and forth and send his family to Gainesville and send his family to Baton Rouge and just be so two-faced with it, I guess. Because then he goes on Pat McAfee and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know any
I love
of this
it here.
stuff. And then, I love it here. And then he has the Marty Smith E60 earlier in the year in like the second or third week of the season talking about I needed Oxford more than it needed me. And you're just leading your team and your fan base on to think that you're going to stay there forever. And then you just bolt on them at the 11th hour to say you want to go win a national championship. I thought Pat McAfee made a great point last week. He said you want to go win a national championship at LSU, but you got it right. You got the opportunity right here in front of you at Ole Miss, what you've built up. So I get why he left. I don't blame him for leaving. I understand it 100%. And I understand your Mark and all them not allowing him to continue to coach and through the playoffs. I get it all 100%. I don't think they're wrong, but I think that their best chance to win it all would be with him on the sidelines, and I that's not happening. So I think Ole Miss obviously is going to beat Tulane, but I don't like their chances against Georgia in the second round.
Yeah, even though they're back-to-back, you know, it's hard to beat two teams once in a season. You know, I don't necessarily know if this is even going to be the same Ole Miss team that is going to be the team that they play in the playoffs. I'm talking about Georgia, of course.
Right.
Because, I mean, obviously Lane Kiffin had his eyes looking somewhere else. I mean, is Trinidad Chambliss in the same boat? Is the rest of this Ole Miss offense thinking the same damn thing? As soon as this is over, I'm out of here. I'm hitting the portal. I'm going to LSU, right? You know, Lane's not allowed to be on campus at Oxford, obviously. He's not allowed to talk to the players right now as the head coach for another team. But Charlie Weiss is there, and he's going to be the OC at LSU. You're telling me he's not talking to some of these guys and saying, hey, you know, regardless of this year, come on over with us. But Cameron,
the argument that they're saying why he left is because he's going to poach your roster. I've said this in our podcast on Saturdays in the SEC. If the argument that you're not letting him coach is only because he's going to poach your roster, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life because he's going to do it anyway. He is going to – the portal's going to open January 2nd, whether he's at Ole Miss or whether he's at LSU or whether he's at Florida. The portal's going to open, and he is going to contact those guys. And if they want to come to LSU, they're going to go to LSU, whether he's the coach at Ole Miss through the playoffs or whether he's not. I think that's the dumbest argument. There's 100 other arguments to have, but saying that he's going to poach your roster is the most laughable argument I've heard all the last few weeks, this whole entire coaching search, and it pisses me off to my core every time I hear it because I'm like, he's got their numbers. He can
exactly.
He can DM them on Instagram. He can DM them on Twitter. Like if he wants to get them and they want to leave, they're going to do it regardless of whether he's there or not. I digress. I'll get on my soapbox about that.
No, yeah. I agree totally. And to really, it's just a different way of saying, look, this guy punked you. He walked out on you. So this is the only way that they can punk him back is by not letting him coach, which he wanted to do. And like I said, I would probably do the same thing if I were in the situation. I mean, your feelings are hurt, emotions are high. Like, this guy built you up, led you to the college football playoff. You got to win finally a chance to win a national title. And then he walks out the door just moments before we get in the college football playoff. So I get it from their perspective. I think obviously under normal circumstances, Lane Kiffin being on the sideline is their best chance of winning it all. Under the circumstance with him already being the LSU coach, if they allowed him to stay, I don't know that it would help that much because as we've seen in the past, I don't know how well Lane is a multitasker. Obviously, Nick Saban didn't think so because he showed him the door. Yeah. In hindsight, maybe he shouldn't have done that, and maybe Alabama wins that championship game. But so I don't know with the portal opening in January too, the calendar, as we talked about a bunch on our podcast, is so screwed up. So with the portal opening up and you're trying to be the LSU coach and then trying to be the Ole Miss coach too, I don't know how well that would have worked. But like Carden said, Ole Miss may use this as fuel. Like, hey, he didn't want to be with us anymore, but it's going to galvanize everyone. It's going to rally against us. We got our guy now in Pete Golding who's been here with us. So maybe it'll galvanize them. I definitely think it's going to do that against Tulane because I think they're going to beat the brakes off Tulane again probably. And I'm like Carden, though. I don't know how they're going to fare in a matchup against Georgia again. I'm so high on the way this Georgia team's playing right now. So I think that's going to be a tough hill to climb. But I definitely think they're going to take some frustration out on Tulane again probably. I think they beat Tulane by 35 in the first matchup, I believe. So I think it's going to be lopsided again. And like I said, Ole Miss's offense, though, we saw them give Georgia fits the first matchup. So you never know. I mean, that's going to be an entertaining matchup, assuming we get it. But I think they're going to fare well against Tulane, though.
Okay, so second question about this, because, I would talk a lot about the Tulane game, but, I mean, let's be honest, right? This is not going to be much to talk about. And even if Tulane puts up a good fight, I just see there's no world, in my opinion, that they win this game. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll be the first one to hop on a podcast and say, well, shoot, I was dead wrong about that. But the second question I want to talk to you all about was, did Lane Kiffin make the right decision, in your opinion, to leave Ole Miss and go to LSU to, quote unquote, win a national championship? I'll give you my thoughts because I have I think a fair-minded take, but might be a little hot right now because of where Ole Miss is at right now. But go ahead. I'll start with Cameron. I'll start with you back to back. Let's hear it.
I mean, it's tough to say, obviously, with the legacy he built in Ole Miss going down. I mean, he's the best coach they've had in program history and getting them to brand new heights. I mean, so it's really tough to say. I mean, I think ultimately probably so, because I think the resources at LSU, you've seen the coaches that have won titles at LSU. I do think ultimately it'll be easier at LSU to win a national title because I think he won't have to be as portal reliant as he was at Ole Miss. I think he can build a little bit more through high school recruiting a lot easier. Obviously, he's going to have just an abundant amount of resources to back him there. So I think just in job quality, and I think, too, we look at that Ole Miss job like – I know I do personally. I look in that Ole Miss job in such a better light than I did 6-7 years ago because of what he did there. Like, that's a big props to him. So I think ultimately he did. I think just as far as him winning a national title. But, I mean, obviously a lot of emotions involved. I still think he would have been very successful going forward and had a chance. But I think on a year-in, year-out basis, I think he made the right decision, and I do think it will be easier for him ultimately getting that goal of winning a national title for himself and for LSU.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that, he made the right decision because in LSU, you are the state's university. You don't have to compete against anybody else in state. Like Cameron talked about, the resources. You're talking about like your practice resource, your your weight room, your nutrition, things along those lines. And then they also came out and said they're going to give him $20+ million for NIL and such. And then they're guaranteeing a $90 million contract. No matter what, he's going to get $90 million from them. They got the resources to give to him to go and succeed. Every coach outside of Brian Kelly since Nick Saban has won a national championship there. He's better than two of those guys. He's definitely better than Les Miles. He's definitely better than Ed O. So Nick Saban has come out and said multiple times that his biggest regret in his career is leaving LSU. So I think it's, in my opinion, the best job in college football, mainly for the fact that you don't have to compete against anybody else in state in recruiting. And like Cameron said, he's been super reliant on the portal at Ole Miss because he kind of had to be. And then he filled his roster with high school guys. He's going to get to flip that. He's going to get to rely on high school recruiting now and fill his roster through the portal, which he is a great guy at evaluating talent out of the portal, as we've seen him do over the years at Ole Miss. So I think it was a home run job for him for sure. I think, again, arguably the best job in college football, and mainly being because you don't have to recruit against anybody in state. You are the IT university.
Okay, well, I don't think my take will be as hot as I maybe thought it would be. I 1,000% agree. And I think Nick Saban was probably the number one factor behind him going to LSU. Nick Saban has repeatedly said LSU was the biggest regret of my career. Leaving LSU was the biggest regret of my career. I think he loved Baton Rouge. Louisiana is LSU. LSU is Louisiana, right? When you talk about college athletics, that's it. And then per capita, the most blue chip prospects per 100,000 people in the country. You do not have to leave the state of Louisiana to field an elite team. There's hardly any other places that you can say that as or at. And it's the only place that you can say that at that you don't have to compete with other schools close to you. I mean, you've got Texas and Austin, right? That's a 7-8 hour drive. You've got Houston, but I mean, who's in Houston? College Station, A&M, is a 5-6 hour drive. Alabama has poached a lot of recruits during the Saban era from Louisiana. But I think situationally right now, LSU is in a prime position to win. Alabama is weaker than they have been in a decade plus. Texas, I mean, are they quote unquote back? Maybe, but they don't look as great as you would think they would. A&M has never been a strong recruiter of Louisiana players. So yes, you fill your roster with Louisiana players recruiting wise, and then you add transfer portal players. Now, secondarily, my biggest argument against Ole Miss and not staying there, Lane Kiffin would have been an Ole Miss legend. He already probably is, right? The greatest coach in Ole Miss history, and would have gone down as like a Paul Bear Bryant-esque figure in their program's history. But I'm telling you right now, Ole Miss, even if Lane Kiffin would stay, would never, ever win a college football national championship. Now, that might be a hot take, but I think Ole Miss, head-to-head against Georgia, they can absolutely win. Head-to-head against Ohio State, I think that they win. Or I think that they can win, excuse me. But to do it back to back to back and potentially a fourth back, there's just no way, in my opinion. Ole Miss can pull off an upset against Oklahoma, but you play that game 4 times in Norman, Ole Miss goes 3-1, 2-2, 1-3. It doesn't matter. You got to win at least 3, if not 4 games in a row. Right now, with the college football playoff layout, we might be going to 16, 24 teams in the future. Might have to win even more games than that. And I just don't think Ole Miss has the resources, the fan base, the support, I guess. I mean, that goes along the lines with resources to field a team elite enough to win that consistently on a year in and year out basis. So, but LSU has that. We've seen it time and time again. So I think taking the LSU job was the right move. How he did it, of course. Just he's just such a PR nightmare, man. Yeah. I cannot understand. I mean, he left the dog or whatever the rumors were in Oxford. we have all these texts about bringing a bag, different places.
Is juice still loose in Oxford? Is that
that's a great question.
Juice still loose.
And then there was reports that it wasn't even his dog. He was letting some wildlife management company that he bought it from raise it. So it's like he never even lived at his house. Like it is crazy. Like you said, PR nightmare.
I think part of this whole situation too. Now I do think, and there's been reports in the past too, that Lane is very indecisive, especially with big decisions like this. So I do think for the longest time he was really torn. But I think part of it too was one thing about Lane is Lane loves Lane. Like that is for sure. So I think part of it, I think he was loving soaking some of the media attention up as well. So I think it was a case. I think it was partially both things. But Lane. I think too that's why everybody mentioned about Saban retiring. All just from what people have said, I think the way things went down at Alabama, and there was things off the field, like there was bridges that were burned there, that he wants that job so bad. Like he's wanted that job for a while now. I think he would crawl on glass to get it, to be honest with you. But that's something that is never going to happen. I think he knows that at this point. So I think that's exactly why, too, this was the perfect time for him to take that job. And as you guys have laid out, one of, if not the most elite job in college football.
Yeah, 100%. All right, last thing about Ole Miss. We're going to shift back. We're going to get off the Lane talk because, maybe Lane Kiffin listens to this and just listens to the part that we're talking about him. But let's talk about them hiring Pete Golding, okay? So Pete Golding, a few years ago, DC at Alabama, just obviously the fan base didn't like him. I actually thought he did a fairly serviceable job at Alabama. People might disagree with me. But he takes this weird transition where he doesn't get fired at Alabama. He takes the Ole Miss DC job, right? And Ole Miss's defense this year has been surprisingly better than I thought that they would be. I did not think Ole Miss was a playoff team. And I thought the offense was going to be great because it's Lane Kiffin, right? Every Lane Kiffin offense is good. What I didn't expect was the defense to play as well as they did. So what do y'all think about them hiring Pete Golding? Obviously, if I know for a fact, if the AD and the boosters and all these other people had it their way, they wouldn't probably have hired Pete Golding because, you would have done a more extensive coaching search, but you can't do that, right, with the circumstances. So what do y'all think about the Pete Golding hire? Carden, I'll start with you.
I think it's well-deserved for him. He's paid his dues. He's been an assistant in college football for as long as I've been alive, it feels like. So, he's earned it. It was definitely nothing given to him. But also, if Lane Kiffin would have said that he was leaving in the middle of the year and didn't run him around for a month or 2 months, then they probably would have gone a different direction. But because all of the big-name guys had been hired from other schools, like John Summerall was taken up, Alex Golis was taken up, a lot of the bigger-name guys that were the up-and-coming coaches, so to speak, because, there was a lot of smoke around Summerall to Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin was to leave, and then, Florida ended up inking the deal with him. So they were kind of put in a bad spot with, okay, who are we going to get? Who do we want to get that we feel comfortable enough with? I think that Pete Golding, again, definitely deserved it. I think they're going to be fine under him, but I think that he's the interim coach without having the interim tag. I think next year is audition year for Pete Golding. Depending on how it goes, I told Cam this last week when we were talking about it. It feels kind of like the Zach Arnett situation. Not a panic hire, but a hire where you're like, we've got to make a decision and we've got to make it now. We can't let this linger on any longer than it needs to be. And it's even more magnified because they are in the college football playoffs. If they were not in the college football playoffs, he may still have gotten the job, but they may have taken a little bit longer to do so. But so the situation that they were in, he gets the job because they had to fill that role. So it reminds me a lot of that Zach Arnett situation when the Pirate died and they promoted him from DC to head coach, and the stint didn't last long. He was out after 2 years. So it kind of seems like that. It's kind of like okay, we want you. We're gonna be behind you no matter what. It's gonna be come out and prove it, and then you're having your real coaching audition. Obviously these next few weeks and then into next season is what I think. I think he's the interim coach without the interim tag is how I feel about it. I don't hate the hire. I think I would have done the same thing if I'd have been in the position to make the hire, but I don't think that it's the same type of hire as a John Sumrall or an Alex Golesh or a Matt Campbell that Penn State just hired and things along those lines.
That's a great snipe, by the way. Zach Arnett comparison. I love that. That's awesome.
That's immediately what I thought of when I saw that he was promoted. That's immediately what went in my head.
Yeah. Let me hear what you got, Cam.
I was actually I agree on all points there. I think for this playoff run specifically too, I think it serves as such a galvanizing decision, like a way to rally the troops, so to speak. Like, hey, Lane walked out the door, but hey, all the guys still here. We're all in 100%. But I'm also like Card, I'm kind of in wait and see mode for as far as the future. And I want to see too, like what their resources are going to be like. Like, are they going to give him 100% the full resources that Lane's been getting? Or maybe, hey, are we going to hold it back? Like, is it more of a placeholder type hire? And my mind went just from on the field purposes. This is a bad time to have this comparison, but I was going to say it kind of felt like Sharon Moore getting the Michigan job. And then, like I said, no way, mate. This is not an off the field comparison at all. So I don't want to go there. Just strictly on field, kind of felt like Sharon Moore was a placeholder coach at Michigan, and that's exactly what he ended up being. So I hope that's not the case for Pete Golden. I hope it sticks. I'm really rooting for him. And I'm like you, Alexander. I thought he did a better job at Alabama than people gave him credit for. I thought he caught too much heat at times. So I really do hope it sticks, but I am kind of in the wait and see mode with him as far as future seasons. But for this playoff run specifically, absolutely think it was the right move. I think it'll get the most out of those players going forward and kind of keeping morale high, keeping guys together. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how it works out though going forward.
Yeah, my only thoughts about this situation is I agree with you guys. Given the basic circumstances, I think you got to go with Pete Golding because there's no way you can give him the interim tag and say, well, we'll just wait to see until after the season. You can't do that and then expect your roster and the rest of your coaching staff to be bought in. I think probably 70% more of the coaching staff would have hopped on that plane going to Baton Rouge if it wasn't for Pete Golding getting an actual hire there. But secondarily, my ghost thought is Lane Kiffin was playing the field this whole time. I can't think of the Ole Miss AD off the top of my head, but why was he also not playing the field? And just saying, like, for example, prime example is James Franklin taking the Virginia Tech job. A lot of people put James Franklin pretty low on the coaching hire totem pole right now. I think James Franklin would have been a perfect hire for Ole Miss to make. He has perfect SEC experience at Ole Miss. I mean, at Vanderbilt, he's done a great job there. I thought he did a phenomenal job at Penn State. Look, talk about the big games all you want, but winning 9 or 10 games at Penn State, especially early on after the Joe Paterno crap, I mean, that's a tip to the cap right there. Yeah. So I thought the Ole Miss AD should have been playing the field a little bit more, talking to some of these other coaches that were potentially about to get hired and just saying, hey, tell James Franklin, tell Virginia Tech just to wait just a little bit. And we'll just, if Lane ends up leaving, the Ole Miss job is yours. But at the same time, given the circumstances, you got to make an emergency situation like, 3 a.m. at the athletic director's house because Lane Kiffin's booking a private jet to Baton Rouge. I get it. Totally get it. But, Ole Miss, I mean, do you guys give them, before we wrap this up, talking about Ole Miss, do you guys give them any chance in the playoffs outside of, obviously, they're going to beat Tulane? If they beat Georgia, can they beat Ohio State? And if they beat Ohio State, can they beat, Indiana, Alabama, Oregon, right? You already know my opinion on this.
Here's my thoughts on it. We covered this last week in our podcast. Kirby Smart has, going back to his time as defensive coordinator for Alabama, he has never lost a rematch. 2011, lost a game against LSU 9-6. Second game was the national championship game in 2011. They won 21-0. LSU never crossed the 50. 2017, Auburn puts 40 up on them at Auburn, beats them 40-17 or whatever it was. SEC championship game, Georgia wins 24-7. So Auburn scored 7 points, couldn't do anything offensively. 2021, Alabama beats them in the first game. In the SEC championship game, Georgia finds a way to win. 2020. If you look at 2024 last year, they beat Texas. Georgia beats Texas in the first game. They beat them in the second game. And then you look at this year with Alabama. Alabama beats them, puts up 24 on them in the first game. Alabama only puts up 7 in the SEC championship game. The only team whose offense scored more points in the second game was Texas last year, and they only scored 18 points. The opposing team's offense in the rematches against Kirby, their offenses always perform worse, drastically worse. Ole Miss's offense gave Georgia a real scare this year. I think that they're going to beat Tulane for sure. They're going to go in and face Georgia without Lane Kiffin. Kirby is going to have a field day with that offense, and that offense is not going to perform any way, shape, or form like we've seen them all season, and that trend is going to continue, and Kirby Smart's going to stay undefeated in rematches.
There you go. Love it.
I'm like Carden, too. I think Georgia gets them in a rematch, even though it is tough to beat a team twice. But I just think the Georgia defense playing better from a pass rush perspective. I think the secondary's improved a lot. Just the team as a whole has really peaked in the second half of the season. So I don't think they're going to get past Georgia in the quarterfinals. And two, I just think they're on the toughest side of the bracket. I think when you're looking at Ohio State, Georgia, you've got A&M, Miami. Like, that's just a brutal side of the bracket, honestly. So I just don't give them a chance really to make it. I guess if they did get past Georgia in the quarterfinals, I don't think that'd happen. I don't see them making the national title probably. Kind of like you alluded to earlier, I just don't see them having the stamina to go, 3 or 4 straight here, especially the circumstance they're in right now too. But I think they'll go down swinging for sure, but I just don't think they have enough to really be a threat to win the whole thing.
Yeah, to close this out, Ole Miss has got to basically pull off a miracle to do this over and over and over again. We're kind of talking about an Indiana Pacers NBA Finals run where it is 0.00001% chance that it happens the way that it did, but that's the way that it goes. And you never know with college football.